Hello, and welcome to this very special Sunday night stream. Before I bring on my illustrious panel of guests, let me do some shout outs here real quick because we've got quite a few people here already in the chat hanging out. What's up, Richard Stange? What's up, Nico? Thank you for the generous super chat, my friend. Appreciate that. $10. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Hey, Piz and Pals, another historic night in the PWO. What a panel. I know. Yes, this is going to be fun. We got Future Dead Camper here, Return of the Disc, movie fan. We got Direct to Screenwriter, who's a huge fan of all of my guests tonight. Awesome. Very cool. Usu, Redbeard, Jose. We got Rizami here, Swaggy. What's up? So before I bring on tonight's panel, just a couple of quick things. Time permitting, we will do a Q&A at the end of tonight's stream. So if you have a question for any of my guests, hold on to those until the end of the stream, or send them as a super chat. That, of course, supports the channel, and YouTube keeps track of those, so they are easily I can easily refer to them later on in the stream. But why I wanted to do this stream tonight with these awesome guests is because I've always been fascinated with screenwriters and screenwriting. The process, the pitfalls, the fact that it all starts with words on a page. Yet it seems like the writer is typically seen as the most expendable and the easiest to replace in the creative process. I've heard so many hilarious and heartbreaking stories from screenwriters who've had their visions warped and corrupted, and at the end of the day, theirs is the sole writing credit on what's left. And of course, the Writers Guild of America is currently on strike, fighting for better wages. I'm very excited to be joined tonight by three screenwriters who I have a tremendous amount of respect for to discuss the life of a screenwriter, the strike, and to answer your questions in case any of you out there watching want to be a screenwriter. My first guest tonight, he is no stranger to this channel. He's one of two fellow Kentuckians on the panel tonight. He is the great Todd Farmer. Todd, you look shocked. You, how are you tonight? He's speechless. Oh my God.
And I'm back.
How's it going, Todd?
I'm good. Could you see me setting up that horribly rickety contraption in the background while I was doing that?
I did, and I gave you a little extra time to get it set up. So I let the intro go a little longer tonight.
It would. That's glue.
But I appreciate the showmanship, you know?
Well, I do what I can. It is a functioning tool shed after all.
It is, yes. Is that like the hub of Farmer?
Tis indeed.
The Farmer LLC is right there.
I write right here and I build stuff right here. So
man, wow.
It's all good.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on the channel. Thank you for coming back.
Always a pleasure to be here.
I'm not the only person who thinks you rules. Orman also
Orman knows.
Yeah. So he's on board. He's Team Farmer too, apparently. So but yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. Also joining me tonight, another familiar face. He is the screenwriter who took us all to hell many times and back. Peter Atkins. What's up, Peter?
Hey, Justin. Hey, Todd. Great to be here. Thanks for asking me back.
Oh, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, man. Yeah, it's great to see you again. How's everything going?
Going great. I didn't realize that I was the only limey bastard in a sea of Kentucky. I didn't know all three of you were. That's great. That's
Well, but here's the thing, though. We've embraced you as one of ours. All you need is a bottle of bourbon and like a chaw of tobacco, and you're good to go.
Got it tucked in right here, pal.
Good. Very good. Very good.
All right.
I'm sure the bottle's off screen. Just we just can't
listen. At the risk of offending you, the bottle is off screen, but it is Stoli, not in the back, you know. But you know,
Well, look, I love some Stoli myself. So I
sure,
mean,
keep
you
it chilled.
exactly. Got to keep it chilled. But thank you for joining me tonight, Peter. Always a pleasure, sir.
Sure.
And making his debut on my channel tonight, he is the man behind Final Destination and many other films. Another fellow Kentuckian, Jeffrey Reddick. How's it going, sir?
Good. I just don't have a decapitated head to like roll off, like
I know.
or a cool accent like Peter. But I'm doing well. So it's nice to see Peter and Todd, and nice to be on your show. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've been a fan of yours for a while, and it's great to finally have you on the channel.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, of course, we're going to talk about all things screenwriting tonight, and the WGA strike, and a lot more. But what I'd like for each of you to do, in the style of a log line, can you each describe the life of a screenwriter? Todd, you've got a smile on your face. I think you're prepared.
I mean, yeah. Can we use vulgarity on this show?
Why not?
God, I hope so.
The log line of a life of a screenwriter. It's not what you think.
I like that one. It's mysterious.
It's mysterious.
I do.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not what you think.
Is you mean it's not as glamorous as we all think, or
it's we're not as rich as everyone assumes. It's not as glamorous as everyone assumes. There was an old joke that I don't know, one of you would remember the joke. It's a screenwriter joke about some girl, some actress, and she's like, "Are you dating the screenwriter?" And I forget the joke, but it's really funny. So if you find someone that knows it, have them tell it to you.
Well, if it's the joke I'm thinking of, Todd, it comes from a different time, and we must not judge it by today's standards.
Okay.
Because it manages to be both racist, nationalist, and
right?
anti-feminist. Because I think the joke was, did you hear about the Polish actress? She was so fucking dumb, she slept with a screenwriter.
Okay. No, I did.
Just do not laugh at that. You will be canceled.
oh,
That's not the one I heard, but that's a variation on the one I heard.
Oh man, I don't know where we go from there. Well, I don't know where we go. But
Thanks for coming, guys.
Let's just start drinking.
Good night, guys. Let's get the bottle out. Oh geez. Oh my God. Okay, so Jeffrey, what would be your log line for the life of a screenwriter?
The life of a screenwriter is a lot of fighting to get what you wrote on the page actually on the screen.
True.
Yeah, there's so many people that just come in and they will muck with your stuff. People that aren't creative, people who are just making crazy business decisions, and yeah, so that's the life of it.
Okay, and I think I'm going to use that to segue into my next topic. But Peter, what would you say is the log line?
I wish I'd known you were going to ask the question, because I would like to look like I'm clever and cite a very famous Marxist theorist, but I can't remember the quote probably. But what I want to say is the life of a screenwriter is short, brutal, and I can't remember the third word, but it was somebody who described the proletariat, and it was short, brutal, and X. So I will add this for screenwriters: short, brutal, and delusional.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
that works.
All right.
Totally works.
All right. Cool. Reggie says, unfortunately, these gentlemen have some free time right now. I hope they can get this strike resolved soon. They deserve to be making a living wage for their work. I 100% agree.
Very, very accurate. I like that.
And we will be talking about the strike here very soon, I promise. But to segue from Jeffrey's log line, what was the, because what would you say was the harshest truth or lesson that you first learned in your journeys as a screenwriter? Peter, you
Really?
go for
Couldn't somebody else break the ice on this?
You just pointed me. I'll start talking. I have no idea what I'm saying,
okay.
but I'll start talking.
Go ahead, Todd. Go.
For me, I think it would be twofold. It would be one, I was very lucky when I got in the business. I knew I had met Dean Lorey through a friend of a friend, and Dean Lorey had just done Major Pain with Damon Wayans. But before that, he did My Boyfriend's Back and Jason Goes to Hell. And so he sent me to Sean Cunningham. I got paid $1,000 a week to write. No, that's not true. I got paid $1,000. I got paid $500 a week to write for Sean Cunningham, which, by the way, when you're just starting out, that's great. You can't go wrong with that. And later I found out he was only paying me $2,000 a month, which, if you do the math, I was actually not making as much as I thought I was going to be making, but he did make up for that by buying me a laptop. And so it's just a weird thing. But anyway, I had my first movie within 3 years, and I thought that was just sort of how it went. I didn't realize that there was a tremendous amount of luck involved. I thought that I was just really good at this writing stuff, and there was more luck than I thought. So it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, because I just got lucky in the beginning. And the other thing was, I always assumed that anybody in the industry was rich, that they just made a ton of money because of, that's what I'd always heard. And I made my first movie and I got paid good money, but I didn't go buy a fancy car and a house with it. I paid bills with it. So I never had the $1 million payday. I know there are guys who have. I know guys who've had that, but it never happened to me. So I've been a working screenwriter. And so those were the two things that were different than what I thought they would be.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
I started working at age 19 at a studio. So the harshest lesson that I learned but I think that's actually helped me from like going insane over the years or giving up, is I learned that it wasn't a matter of how good a screenplay was that came in. If a screenplay that was 100 times worse came in with a star attached to it, and this wasn't just a New Line thing, this is like a business thing, because I was at New Line during its like creative heyday when they were making amazing stuff. But then they started getting more corporate, as have all the studios. Mm-hmm. So now everything's just like a business decision. So it's not really about how good of a screenplay it is. It's like, is it attached to a big video game or book, or let's just remake something or have 15 more sequels of something. So that was the harshest lesson I learned. It's like, it doesn't matter how good your script is. There is luck involved and you have to stick with it. Patience is like the one thing that I always tell people. If you stick with it long enough, you will get your movie made. But there is luck involved, there's timing involved, and now the studios want you to bring a script to them that has like a star attached already, and it's like that used to be your job.
Right.
That was the harshest lesson, is like, it's not just about having a great script. It's like there are so many forces out of our control that go into getting a movie made. And that's for any side, writing, acting.
Sure.
What was it like working for New Line back in their heyday?
I loved it. I mean, I really got spoiled rotten. I mean, those were the days when you could sell a treatment. You could just go in and pitch something, and they were throwing out, not to me, but they were throwing out $1 million paydays to many people. But I also saw them taking chances on making, movies like Blade, which was, this was the early 90s, and people were like, who wants to see a black, Marvel villain, character? I know. And then it's like Black Panther comes out and we're like, hey, Blade was first, fuckers.
Yeah, exactly.
They just took a lot of creative risks, like doing movies like The Mask and Dumb and Dumber, and just movies that a studio wouldn't make today, because it's not based off a toy. So I loved working there, and I got very spoiled. And I was also in the New York office, so I wasn't kind of in with all the Hollywood hoopla, which would have been probably better after, as a writer, to be in the Hollywood hoopla. But, it was filled with people who love making movies. So, this was when Sarah Risher, Bob, Mike DeLuca was there. They just made like they just went with their gut on projects that other places were like, or this makes no sense to try to make this movie. So I definitely miss those days because I don't think that there's ever going to be a place like that anymore.
Is it true that Bob Shea would hear your pitch, whether you didn't matter if you were in the mailroom, if you had a pitch, he'd hear it?
If he was he worked in LA, and Bob Shea, I adore that man so much. I owe my career to him. But yeah, you don't waste Bob Shea's time. So he's like not somebody you just go up and start pitching to. Like, you better have a damn good pitch. So it's probably better that you pitch somebody before you talk to Bob, because 20 seconds into it, if it wasn't perfect, he would just be like, yeah. So he would listen, but he just,
yeah, you're fired.
No, he would never fire anybody. But
that's cool. That's right. Because I've heard so many stories about New Line back in the heyday, and how it was a, what they call it, a major mini or a mini major or something like that. Yeah. Then they were taking risks when, like you said, when other studios weren't. I mean, a lot of great movies came out around that, and Seven. That was a New Line, and of course, the Lord of the Rings, that was a huge gamble for them that paid off majorly. So, yeah. Peter, what was the harshest truth you first learned about screenwriting?
Sure. I want to agree with both Todd and Jeffrey, but both those things. That there are so many other factors about. Rather than simply, hey, this is a great script, let's make it. And the luck thing, I totally agree with. I was remarkably lucky too, and I sort of slid into the business, and my first script was produced, and I got a couple of rewrite gigs. So it was kind of golden entree. So it took a while to learn the harsher lessons, but so. The one I'd like to say, partly because it's relevant to the later topic of the strike, is I wish I'd learned, and more importantly, I wish I'd had an agent who said to me, tell them you want a signatory deal, because my first two movies, I was not in the guild. So you got to enter where you can enter, take the opportunities, get in for sure. But everything we have as guild member screenwriters has been won by sons of bitches who will strike and demand and shout and holler. So Hellraiser 3 is 31 years old this year. I hate saying that out loud, but it's true. And Wishmaster is 25 years old this year. Every 3 fucking months, I get a green envelope from each. I get 2 green envelopes every 3 months, and one of them contains money for Hellraiser 3, and one of them contains money for Wishmaster. Not as much money as 5 years ago, but you still get those checks. I don't get checks for Hellraiser 2, and I'm sorry, Bloodline, not Hellraiser 3. So I wasn't in the guild for Hellraiser 2 and Hellraiser 3. I see. That would have bought me a house. And B, it's the realization that you need to be protected by the guild. It's a harsh truth that everything, our pension, our health coverage, our residuals, all thanks not to the studios being reasonable in negotiations, but to the guild forcing their damn hand to give us what most workers in most industries, at least for most of the 20th century, regarded as the normal benefits of a job. I don't want to get into the whole strike thing yet, and I'm sorry, but I thought that was a relevant thing. That it was like, it took me a while to think, I was with William Morris by the time I was doing Hellraiser 3. Shouldn't they have said, we need this to be signatory? Just a little bitch there.
If you've ever seen the documentary about the guy that made the Boondock Saints for Miramax.
Mhm.
Miramax and William Morris was in Miramax's pocket, according to this documentary. So there was a lot of shady stuff going on between those two. Like they had a lot of clients. They shared a lot of clients.
Shady stuff with Miramax?
No, I know. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I was legitimately shocked.
Right.
I mean, those guys were just solid guys, you know. I wish even joking about that made me feel dirty. Stephanie Crawford says, Jeffrey, you're literally on screen at the Fango Awards right now.
How is that
No,
possible?
no, he isn't. No, he isn't.
No, it's supposed to be live. I mean, it's live. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna glance over and turn my TV on so I can record it for my sister who's watching.
Yeah.
And
It might be a little late.
yeah, I thought I would see it earlier.
That's
Sorry
funny.
about the slideshow.
Master of the space-time continuum.
I know. I've
Two
got powers
places
I
at
haven't
once,
told you guys about.
I do want to mention Joe Reese says that Piz, these guys have wrote 3 of my favorite movies: Final Destination, Hellraiser Bloodline, and My Bloody Valentine 3D.
Aw,
We love you, Joe.
yes, we do, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Sorry, sis, can't find it on Shutter, so we'll have to find it later.
but Peter brings up an interesting I want to bounce off something Peter said. You know, doing these, I've made friends with a lot of people who work in the industry, and they joke about net points. I'm sure you guys are all, you know, net point. Net means never, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thing with net points is you don't get a residual based on those points until the movie has turned a profit. But according to is that right? Is that close?
You certainly don't get any money for your net points until
Yeah, there's no net
point
point.
profit.
Yeah.
Again, thanks to uni action, residuals are different from points. Points are bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, at least in my experience, I don't know about you guys,
Oh,
but
no.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, I own 5% of Hellbound, and
Oh,
one
yeah.
of these days,
It's gonna pay.
I'm expecting a check.
It'll turn a profit one day, I'm sure.
But no, just to be clear, Justin, and you know, for people who are listening, because it is important, residuals is a different thing. Residuals is a legal fiction that represents the equivalent of book royalties.
Yeah.
We as writers, screenwriters, surrender our copyright to the studio or the production company, the movies. So they can't call it a royalty, but the residual is the equivalent of a royalty. So that kicks in. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. As soon as there is a secondary market, you don't get residuals for your theatrical run, because the vast fortune they pay us for the script in the first place is meant to cover the theatrical run. Your residuals kick in when it sells to TV, when it goes to, back in the day, VHS, when it goes to DVD, Blu-ray, foreign territories. Those are residuals. So thank God that in fact is not tied to net points, which again, guys, if you know better, I think, as far as I know, nobody has ever received a penny from net points. There was one story that Jerry Lewis's production company once paid a writer, 24 years after a movie. And the guy called his agent and said, "What the fuck is this?" And they said, "It's your net points." So as far as I know, and that's anecdotal, not empirical. As far as I know, that is the only incidence of net points ever coming anybody's way.
Yeah.
But aren't those based on whether, because isn't it true that like even some of the biggest movies, some of the most profitable movies ever made, according to the books, have never turned a profit? So
Right.
Therefore, is that what the net points are? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Well, guys, I'm sorry. I'm hugging Mike. You enlighten Justin on this vile inequity.
But it's so strange to me though. How can they say, because like I heard not long ago somebody was that Paramount claimed that Forrest Gump had never turned a profit. How
The
could that movie?
Godfather has never turned a profit, Justin.
But how can they how can they legally cook the books to make it show that these movies have not turned profits? It seems like that's beyond insane.
They certainly you take out everything they can to pay themselves. They'll cross monetize for other projects to kind of like fill in for all that. I look at it, I get annoyed with it because it's like, well, you're basically punishing the successful films for all the crappy movies that you've made. So they have ways to like, allocate money to like cover losses on other films. And the only people that I've known who've ever made any money off of net points had to basically sue to have like an accounting of the books, but it's expensive to sue a studio. So like every Final Destination is still apparently $500,000 in the $500,000. That's not much. No, wait a minute. No, it's like 500 million in the hole. You know what I'm saying? Like if you look at the net formula for the film. So it's like,
wow.
Yeah.
And it only cost 502.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. That's what's startling about that number. It's like, wow. So it retrospectively became more and more expensive as it disappeared. And yeah.
I can tell you a story from when I first moved out here, and it would have been 1990. I moved out in 96, would have been 97 probably when this happened. I met a fellow named Dean Reisner, and Dean Reisner had written High Plains Drifter, Play Misty for Me, Blue Thunder. I mean, Dean Reisner had been around for ages, and Dirty Harry, Enforcer. I became friends with him. He became something of a mentor. And I remember going to his house, and he had a place in Encino, and he came over with a check. I can't remember the green envelope if it was but it was a residual. I didn't understand what this meant. And years later, when I got my first residual check, nobody had talked about it. Nobody had told me. I didn't remember this happening with Dean, but he showed me a check, and it was for Dirty Harry. And Dirty Harry was probably 27, 28 years old at that point. And it was a check for $15,000. And it wasn't like that was after taxes. And like I look at the checks that I get now, and I don't get checks for $15,000 for movies that are 20 years old. It just that you don't get that kind. I get decent money sometimes, and it depends on, certainly after Halloween, Jason X will do better business than normal. But that was from VHS. So VHS had you get a much bigger payoff. And then when DVDs came along, it was brand new. Nobody knew if it was even going to work. So they came to us, the studios, the Producers Guild came to us, and they said, hey, we don't know if DVDs are going to work. So we don't think we can afford to pay you this huge chunk of money that we paid for VHS. So maybe we'll pay you just a tiny little snotty number. And once we know that DVDs are working, then we'll make up for it. And we were like, absolutely. Because we're stand-up guys. We'll do this. We'll do you this service, and then you'll take care of us later. So when later came along, they were like, oh, fuck you both. So we got nothing. And so... No, go ahead. You jump in.
Well, I was going to say, and the thing is, they knew that DVDs were smaller, cheaper to ship, could put more stuff on them. So they knew all this stuff that would save them money. But they were like, oh, this is new technology, like Todd said. And then, screwed. And then they did the same thing when streaming started. They're like, oh, well, this is new. We don't know how it's
still doing it.
And streaming is even worse. And correct me if I'm wrong on streaming. Streaming is, you get paid for one viewing. You get paid when they put it on Netflix. Now, it may be watched 500,000 times, but you're only going to get paid that once.
Yeah, they won't. They won't
Yeah.
share their numbers except to their shareholders, where they're like, "Oh, we're doing great. You know, we made $2 million last quarter. Can't pay you writers though." So yeah, it's this. Yeah, it's we're getting paid a lot less in general, and also a lot less because this used to be a career you could have. You know, you could sustain yourself off of a couple of movies if they did well. Yeah, and now you
You didn't have to be Dean Reisner. You know, it's like there was a middle class for screenwriters where you'd get money, you'd get by, you'd be able to look after yourself. You didn't need a second job, you know. And I also just just to sort of dot the I and cross the T on Todd's point, it's not like the royalties, residuals we were getting on VHS. I think, again, should have looked these facts and figures up before we came on, shouldn't we? It was like 8%. I think we were getting 8% on sales to territories. 8% of a specific.
I think so.
number.
Yeah, it was a big number compared. Now we're getting a fraction of 8%
compared to what it was. But I just want to again make it clear to the listeners, it was 8%. It wasn't like 44% of like retail. You know. It was 8%, and then they insisted on what 1.5 for DVDs. Was that the first? I can't remember, but it was significant drop, right?
But it was 1.5 of 20%. It was like this weird math that it wasn't even a penny for $1. It was way less than that, and it was just. It was a weird system, and we agreed to it, and that's why that is just residuals is one part of this puzzle, but that's residuals is a big part of the puzzle because I had a movie that didn't do well, and Jason X didn't do well, but fortunately, I had another job before Jason X came out and didn't do well. And so that other job helped me get more jobs. And so, but had that other job not happened, had it just been Jason X that came out and bombed, I probably wouldn't have worked again because that happens quite often. And certainly when Drive Angry came out and nobody went to see it, there were years that I didn't work. Now, everybody, the crew and cast, they all go on to bigger and better things. Nick certainly had a struggle, but it wasn't just because of us. It was other movies. He had a bunch of movies come out. He had a struggle, but we, as the writer and director, tend to take the hit when a movie doesn't do well, even though there's 1,000 other factors. And I take the blame. I mean, it's fine. I love Drive Angry. It didn't do well, but I still love the movie. But after that, it was hard for us to find work, and with residuals not paying what they used to pay, I ended up, taking another job, sleeping in a car. I mean, it was good times, I got to tell you. But in the past, when you would have a bad movie or a movie that didn't do well, just for whatever reason, you still had residuals to sort of help you float to that next job, to finding the next job. And even if you have a movie that is successful, like I've had movies that are successful, the residuals would help float for me to get, because I don't know about you two, but I got to write 10, 15 full scripts in order to sell one, or in order to get the job, or in order to get the green light that pays the money. So we do a lot of work to get to the point of actually getting paid to do work. So
we certainly don't want to sound like whining first world problem guys.
I do.
Well, yeah, we are. But exactly because of what Todd says, it's like I think there is a perception that it's like, because they hear, because again, thanks to union action, the basic I've got to forget my scale. Even if you only get paid scale for a studio or a mini major job, it's a nice amount of money. Let's pretend it is. Let's not pretend it isn't.
Yeah.
But civilians will tend to think that's what they get. They get that all the time. And it's like, you got to amortize that over the 4 years before that sale and the 3 years after that sale. If you really, So I'm sure I'm not the only poor self-pitying bastard screenwriter who's like done the math. And
no, there are four of us.
It's like, I've basically been working for minimum wage for the last 30 years, So
Now, if you spread it out and then you've got commissions that come out, for agents, managers, lawyers, and it's not even that it's like, because there is just a misconception about money. Because when people think Hollywood, even with Final Destination, like I'm not going to try to rag on my sister, but my sister literally thought I was a millionaire until she finally came out and visited me for the first time. And she's like, "Oh, you just have like a regular apartment."
Right. Like, that's always embarrassing.
Right? You think I was lying to you? Because there's this idea that if you write a hit movie, like you get a fair share of it. But, in other mediums, this, in theater and songwriting, like the song is a foundation. But because they know that we're writing the script is important, they've kind of put us front in the negotiations for deals. so that we strike first and they can make us look like villains. And you know, they've elevated like directors and actors who are rightly talented and need to be compensated as well. But they seem to forget, like, yes, it does. You know, when we write something, you know, we get to visit set and we get to see hundreds of people working and supporting their families because of something that we put on paper. Like, so, you know, it's not that we're ungrateful. It's just, again, fair share, you know, for, you know,
I do want to, because I'm going to ask you guys about quote unquote horror stories here momentarily, but I want to, let's talk about something positive. It's got to be awesome. Like Jeffrey said, when he's on, you know, when you're on the set of a movie that you've written and you see all these people working, you see all this happening, you see all these characters that you wrote saying the dialogue that you wrote, and you created this entire world. That has to feel pretty good. I would imagine that's quite an accomplished, good feeling. Is it not?
Yeah.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
It's humbling.
Terrible. No, yeah, of course. Yeah. It depends, I would like to say it depends how well those fucking actors deliver the lines, you know, but
it's true.
No, no, it's great. I mean, that aspect of it is wonderful. I mean, again, you know, I don't know you guys' backgrounds. I was always like the lunatic who was trying for the bohemian life, music, theater, whatever. And so, yeah, it's fantastic to be in a big collaborative group of equally delusional people who want to make things to entertain people. And yeah, that's the part. Otherwise, we wouldn't put up with this shit, Justin. You know, it's like, yeah, that bit's great.
Yeah. I think it's very much like you have to stay in gratitude, because I always remember that young geeky kid that grew up in a holler and in Eastern Kentucky who loved horror movies and read Fangoria and wanted to do this stuff. So now that I know how hard it is to get a movie made, it's gotten easier with technology as far as getting content out there or material out there. But just having like one movie that's made an impact, at least as that little horror geek inside of me, has been like mission accomplished. It doesn't mean that's all I want to do, but you know, you stay in gratitude about that. The fans are great.
They are.
But yeah, the struggle is the struggle to kind of, again, stay on, you know, get original content out there in a world that right now does not want, they're too scared to do original stuff. They want, again, has to be based off a $2 million or 200 million best-selling book or video game, or, you know, it's really hard to get something made. So
and you know, I mean, you created an entire franchise. How many movies are there in the Final Destination series now?
5. 6 ones on the way. So
nice.
I am a little jealous of like the Friday the 13th that got all the way up to like, I don't know how many when you count the reboots and the all this stuff. So many. I'm like, I want to be a greedy whore, but I would love to have 14 sequels. But I'm very happy with the 5 that have come out, and the new one is going to be cool too. So,
well, and I'm sure there's a lot of Final Destination fans in the chat. You should doff your cap or do a cheers to Jeffrey, because without him, there wouldn't be Final Destination. So,
yeah, do the doff your cap. Is that what
doff your hat, your cap, whatever's on your head, whatever's on your head,
whatever's on your head,
shower cap, whatever it is, you know.
Well, to stay with the good things that happen, and something, certainly the first time that I wrote something that got made, being Jason X, we had these little earpieces, and just I wrote it in as that, you know, that's how they communicate, how the grunts communicate, how the Marines communicate while they're on this spaceship. And when we got on set, somebody had made them. And so those of us who were in the movie, we actually had to go get our little molds put in our ears so they could actually perfectly make these little things. And I remember thinking, just something I wrote at 2 o'clock in the morning,
right,
and didn't really give it a second thought. Suddenly somebody has to make that. And then later you get your own God killer, which it's not too shabby. So you write it, and then somebody makes it, and then you hang it in your tool shed. So that's not a bad perk.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've got your own severed head over there, for God's sake.
I do have the severed head, yes.
So
And,
I mean,
and for anyone noticing, yes, I am bleeding. So.
Listen, Todd. This is how much Todd cares. That's a skull
There's a piece
fracture.
of skin hanging right there.
I was
so I've come a long way since sleeping in the car. So our tenants have gone on a long vacation, and so we decided to change out the kitchen sink and cabinet countertops and all that. And I got a tool shed, so I'm not going to bring somebody else in to do it. I'm going to do it myself. And then I crawled under the sink and I hit my noodle, and I got a little blood. And there's a little skin flap, so it's gross too.
Well done, Todd.
Thank you. I like
we
it.
need all the blue collar cred we can maintain.
I'm going to go ahead and cut that off right now.
Oh, all right.
It's going to turn into the next Final Destination movie. Oh, goodness gracious. But I do want to mention the horror stories. I've seen a lot of interviews with screenwriters, and so many of them have what I call the horror story, the script that got produced, but what you wrote isn't what made it to the screen, yet you're credited as the sole writer, and it may not be a flattering credit to have on your resume. Can any of you relate to that?
Sure. I'm going to guess we all can. I don't know. Maybe these guys have been even more.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody knows the story of Hellraiser Bloodline. We went over, we talked about that when we did our and I love Bloodline. I know a lot of people out there love Bloodline, but it's not the script that you had intended it to be.
It was a troubled production.
A troubled production, very much so. Yes, troubled production.
Alan Smithy movie.
Well, did you ever consider making it a written and directed by Alan Smithy movie?
Oh, you mean taking my name off?
Taking your name
off.
Or would that have affected you with the guild and with residuals and stuff?
No, as long as you correct me if I'm wrong, guys. The Alan Smithy pseudonym is a pre-existing one that DGA members who are unhappy can use. There's some weird thing in the guild where we don't have a pre-existing everybody use it pseudonym, but you can without losing yours. In other words, you in the secret history you will still be recorded as the writer, so you would still get your residuals. But it's some weird thing where you've got to like somehow be prescient enough to know, oh, these fuckers are going to screw this movie up, so you got to like pre-book your pseudonym. That sounds too ridiculous to be true, so I might have got it wrong. But yeah, you can. The one famous example of a big budget picture I know. Didn't Robert Towne write Greystoke, the Christopher Lambert Tarzan movie? But he was so pissed off, he insisted that the screenwriter credit was the name of his dog. Now, I mean, the dog had a name that looked like a human name. But I want to say P.H. Vizak or something, but I might be pulling that out of my ass about a different thing. But that was a high-profile example of that. And I'm going to guess that Robert Towne did not get residuals.
Well, the dog, according to what I just Googled.
Yeah, I was going to say I Googled it.
Oh,
too.
you youth, you're so fast with your technology.
The dog was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Right.
Wow.
That's a happy ending. That's good.
If only he'd won.
And who would have gone up to make the acceptance? Yeah, right.
Yeah, Town could have walked up there holding the dog and put the dog in front of the mic, and
Right.
That'd been something.
Yeah.
Good screenwriter though.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Town fella.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Town fella. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Do you have any horror stories, Jeffrey?
You know what? I mean, every movie is a journey. I'm gonna start just saying poetic stuff like that to get her. No, I think the only because you learn there's the movie you write, there's the movie that people make, and and a lot of times, especially because of budget, like you don't get the movie that you wanted to have. I think two general horror stories is just I wrote this sequel called Return to Cabin by the Lake, which was like a USA Network movie with Judd Nelson.
Yeah.
And I worked really hard on that script to like make it interesting and make it, not a typical like, cheesy movie. And it got Judd Nelson excited, and he came back. The director came back. And then a week before they were supposed to shoot, the producer on the project called me and said that one of the executives, and they'd all approved the script, was like flying back from some trip and I guess had some drinks and decided that my script was too clever for their audience. So they just had somebody literally go through and just dumb the script down. Like, so basic dialogue, like, the director, like in my version, the director, actresses were kind of like flirting with him to try to like get a bigger role, but he was in love with the leading lady and was like honorable. They just took all that stuff out, like just very generic, dumbed down. And then I think the director got pissed because he shot it like a comedy. So that movie like was the first one where the producer's like, I can't even watch this, Jeff. I can't send it to you before it airs. So I just had a few friends together in my apartment and like tear, like that one little "don't litter" tear going down my cheek. And then the Day of the Dead remake kind of turned into like kind of a mess. Like, whenever you're going to rewrite something that people love, you're going to get killed. And, they'd already hired Steve Miner. The movie was going. I went in and pitched a very faithful kind of adaptation, but updated. And then they signed on to it. And then the minute we started the process, they started having me change everything. And so all the stuff that I'd kind of woven into the treatment that tied into, Day of the Dead and made, people could refer to, they started making me just cut everything related to Day of the Dead. And, they were like, too many zombies or, too many zombies. And so the movie ended up being kind of like a mess, and as a Day of the Dead movie, but as a zombie movie, if it was just called anything else, because we have a great cast and it's a lot of fun to watch, but that was just horrible because you could see me doing interviews when I first got the job going, I really worked hard to be faithful to the original. I think people are going to be excited. And then interviews after it was like, shooting, I'm like, it's a movie. So I was like, man, this is gonna, I still really enjoy it as its own zombie movie, but that was something because you could just see the train wreck happening, and then you just had to sit back and just relax and let it happen.
Oof.
Yeah.
What about you, Todd? Horror stories?
I mean, I certainly, my first movie, I wanted Jason X to be more like Alien or Aliens. I wanted it to be gritty and realistic. Scream had come out. Everything was suddenly self-aware. And so there were a lot of jokes written into it. I knew, and it was better for me to do the rewrites than others. And so, He's Screwed was my line. So, I mean, I certainly played along with that. I now, years later, I'm like, I was being too, full of myself because it's the 10th in a franchise. I mean, who gives a shit? So I should have just had fun with it, and instead of being all, this is the end of my career kind of feeling. But I mean, I think every movie that we take part in, every screenplay that we take part in, there's certainly horror stories all throughout. There's executives that you end up working with who have never done what you are doing, can't do what we are doing as writers, but yet are constantly telling us what to do. And then when you do what they tell you to do, finally, when you argue and you argue and you argue, and then when you do it and it doesn't work, they go to their bosses and say, we tried, but that screenwriter, he just wouldn't listen. So, I mean, that stuff happens, and that's just a part of it. But at the same time, I like Jason X, and I still get money from Jason X, and there are lots of fans who love the movie. There's some who don't, and I'm okay with that. But they don't have a severed head in their shed.
No, they don't.
I do.
And I will say this too, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The fact that Drive Angry was not a huge success still breaks my heart. That is an awesome freaking movie.
Well, I'm glad you did.
You should see it.
It was it was a lot of fun. And that was, as far as horror stories, we shot what we wrote, and that was nice. Now, we didn't get as much money as we thought we were getting, and there were certainly some, there was a lot of money at play. It just maybe didn't all go into the movie.
Mhm.
But I did get a God killer out of it, so I'm okay with that.
Yes, you did.
And Nick's always been very nice and very polite about the movie, and he liked it as well. And so maybe one day we'll do another one. So
Well,
it'd be
Great.
nice.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Peter, you recently tweeted about the late writer Mark Patrick Carducci.
Yeah.
And he wrote one of my favorite 80s horror movies, Neon Maniacs,
Oh yeah, sure.
that was just one big production problem. Delays, they ran out of money, the movie was just unfinished. They edited together what they had, they threw it out
Right.
there, and that was Neon Maniacs. But I love it to death.
I haven't
that's,
seen it.
that's great. That's you're not the first fan of that movie I've met, but there's not many of you. But God bless you, and Mark's departed spirit, I'm sure, is grateful to hear it. That's great.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this, but I'm going to.
You need to watch it, Todd.
I have not seen this.
You will enjoy it.
This looks whack.
Not the guy who created Pumpkinhead, Todd. This Neon Maniacs preceded Pumpkinhead, and then Mark and Gary Girani.
I see the resemblance. This is wow.
It's a good one, Todd.
Great.
It's a good one.
Mark is a great guy, and very tragic circumstance. We lost him way too young.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did he ever? Do you recall him ever talking about Neon Maniacs?
Only with a wry smile, he was he was exactly like Jeff and Todd and me are being. It's like he was glad the movie happened. There was a platonic ideal in his head that was certainly not the movie we got. But I believe I'm right in saying it was his first produced thing. So, there's that inevitable thing of Jesus Christ, I got a movie made,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And, he had mixed feelings about Pumpkinhead because of the way he was. Nobody's going to slag Stan or the creature design or Lance, obviously. But, Mark wasn't treated perhaps as well as he should have been. But like I said in the tweet, Justin, I mean, every year more and more people seem to be saying, "Fuck, Pumpkinhead's great."
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
Yeah, and it is. It combines two of my favorite things: a revenge movie and like just a big creature.
Sure. Yeah.
People,
right. You'll get yours, Ed Hurley, or whatever the line is. Yeah. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, let's talk for a minute about notes. That you've received from an executive or producer or whoever. What are some of the most bewildering notes that you've received about on a screenplay?
Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I don't know, bewildering. It's more where they just give a super generic note, and then you ask them what they mean, and they have no idea what they're talking about. So it's they're business people who like bought a book on screenwriting, and then they'll be like just throwing out phrases that they don't know. Yeah.
The inciting incident seems to be 2 pages late.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay.
Where it's like,
yeah.
I remember saying, I can't. It was the movie was called Clock Tower 3. The video game was Clock Tower 3. It was based on that because I assume they couldn't afford Clock Tower 1 and Clock Tower 2. And so I came in and I wrote it, and there was a sequence where this girl was in I can't remember the name. What's the thing where you float in water and you can't hear or see anything?
Immersion tank.
Yeah.
Sensory deprivation.
Yeah, deprivation. So she's in that, and through that it awakens this thing that sends her to the clock tower and so forth. And the producer or the executive or whatever on it was like, well, why are we doing that? And I said, well, this is how she, intercepts this message from the little girl that sends her to the clock tower in the first place, and this is the inciting incident that starts the movie. And he was like, well, do we need one of those? You mean the quest that starts the movie? I mean, we kind of need one of those. I mean,
Right.
I guess she could just wander around and eventually just show up there. But it's always been that kind of thing. Now, I say it's always been. No, it hasn't. I mean, there are great producers out there. There are great executives out there, and they're not. There's not a lot of them, but there are some great ones. And when you get to those guys, it's just so refreshing. It's so wonderful to be with somebody who understands both sides of the business. They understand the logistics of the business, but they also understand the creative of the business. And then sometimes you come into an executive who is legitimately creative and will come to you with ideas that you didn't see coming yourself. And you're like, okay, I can't wait to go home and figure this out and work on this. So that does happen. It's rare, but it does happen. But then again, I rarely come up with good ideas, so I understand. I give them a little slack.
Right. I feel the same.
Yeah.
What did Sean Cunningham give you any notes on Jason X? How involved was he with that process?
He was very involved. I mean, Sean and I bickered and didn't get along a lot, and I feel kind of bad about that sometimes. Till I think of Sean wanted to be truly involved in the process, but he didn't. I always felt like he didn't really love horror, and but he did want to be involved in want to be involved in screenplay and the structure of screenplay and how it all worked. And I learned a tremendous amount from him. I mean, nobody cooks a better steak than Sean, and I learned that from him. So I mean, that's a good thing. But his notes would often. Like I can remember one of the notes, he wanted dialogue in the background that was technical dialogue, that you didn't have to understand what it meant. It's somebody opened the Hassenpfeffer and we've got to pull this down to track 44 and stuff like that didn't make any sense, that gave the even though the audience didn't know what it meant, it gave some sort of credibility to the world that we lived in. And I get that, and I understand that. It just, to me, it sounded like somebody was looking for the Hassenpfeffer, which seemed like silly to me. But there's different things. He and I didn't see eye to eye creatively, but I understood what he was searching for, and I feel like towards the end, I could sort of give him what he was looking for in a way that made me happy, and that is something that I still to this day use. Which is, I've often said, we will get notes that are. Our job is not to write the best screenplay on the planet. Our job is to take some of the stupidest fucking notes you ever seen and make them okay. Make them work for the audience and for yourself as a writer. And if we can do that, then hopefully the people out there will agree and they'll like the movie as well, like the story as well, like the adventure as well. It doesn't always happen, but that's the hope. That's the goal, at least my goal.
Right.
Do you remember any of the notes that you got on Bloodline or Hellraiser 3, Peter?
Oh yeah. I think we all do, don't we? Yeah, I mean, I just like to pick up on what Todd said, because I think he's right. It's great if, and sometimes executives or producers instinctively know this, and sometimes if you're real careful and real delicate, you can move them towards this. I would much rather have a note which said, I've got a problem here, as opposed to what you need to do is X. Because, again, I don't want to generalize, but they're hiring us to come up with the ideas and the solutions. So just highlight the problem. If something isn't reading right in the script for you, sure, that's a legit response. Let me try and see if, okay, I get what's not working for you, maybe this. But like all of us, people can fall in love with their own ideas. So if they come up with a solution and it's fucking terrible, it's a much harder fight to say, because then, in the weird way, try not to make them look like assholes for their notes. They're very ready to think we're assholes when we give them notes on the suggested solutions. But there are definitely first-rate executives who will point to the problem and say, and let us try and address it, But yeah, I'm sure I've got some favorites from. I mean, the thing about Bloodline, and again, I don't, you were very kind, Justin, to give me a whole show to bitch about Bloodline. So, so I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but I will say the big problem there was, and the Alan Smithy, the director in question, was of course the great Kevin Yeager, the great special effects guy. He was having his legs cut out from under him on a daily fucking basis. Budget was being slashed, and so I wasn't even getting notes. I was getting these sort of desperate flares fired from behind lines from a producer who'd only ever been a production coordinator on much bigger pictures and really had no idea how to make, or at least how to bring in on time and on money the kind of movie guys like us make. So it was just, can you cut this? Can you cut this? We can't do this. We've only got one day in this location. Lose this page. So, that was the worst thing, because it wasn't even notes. It was like, hi, we're eviscerating your script on an hourly basis. Could you help us do that? And like a lot of us, I think my instinct is initially, especially because I loved Kevin and my old friend Gary Tunnicliffe was doing the effects on it. It's my third movie in the franchise. I'm kind of committed to the Hellraiser family. Doug's still the lead. So for about 2 or 3 weeks into the shoot, I was trying. I would like rip these pages out and try and make these clumsy stitches to close the gaping wound. And then I can't remember, somewhere in third or fourth week, I just wrote by fax. This is how long ago this movie is. I resigned by fax.
It was 7 pages. The first page was a big F, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was crisp and tight, Justin. It was okay. So I resigned by fax. But and then can I steal 30 more seconds? Just
of course,
to be mean about somebody.
Please.
You can take 45 to be mean.
My very first story meet, and actually the lady in question was a New World executive who again was very nice. But I was very grateful for Tony Randall, who's going in the end to direct the movie, but had been himself a colleague of this lady, had been an executive at New World. So he was in the room with me. And I'm a first timer, and Gail points to this line and says, so this pin-face guy says, it is not hands that call us, it is desire. And I said, yeah, thinking, yeah, it sounds good even when you say it. And she said, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, it means like Pinhead saying we can't take the little girl's soul because it's the ass. Pay no attention to the mouth. It's the asshole behind the curtain that's making this happen. So he's the guy we've got to take. And she said, and my heart sank. Oh, you should just say that. And I thought, are you fucking kidding me? But it was my first, I think literally my first time in Los Angeles, first time in a story meeting. I'm by nature bolshy, but I don't know if, I didn't know what the rules were. I didn't know if I could say, are you fucking nuts, lady? Of course not. But Tony was in the room, and God bless him. He said, kindly and calmly, come on, Gail, it's poetic. People will understand it. So, but that was, and again, I don't want to point an individual finger at an individual executive, but it's often that it's like they think they're smarter than the audience is the problem. And they think things need to be dumbed down for this dumb audience that likes horror shit. Yeah. But the truth is, I met a lot of horror fans and I met a lot of executives And all the horror fans are fucking smarter than the executives. It's that way around.
Yeah.
Well, I've worked with some writers and I've worked with people on the creative side who also think they're smarter than the audience, which
oh yeah, it's always, we should
tends
always
to be a problem
assume
too.
not,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
The
think I'm
audience-
just the right amount of dumb.
Yeah.
Just fit
The
in.
audience, I have always found that the audience is always way ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Right.
Mm.
So I think we've solved this though. I mean, screenwriters in Hollywood. I think we've reached the end of this.
We have, because
We
we're
got it figured
so
out.
nothing's happening, so there won't be any notes.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories was when Patrick Lussier was on the show, and he was talking about Dracula 2000. And I forget if he said it was Bob or Harvey Weinstein, but was like, it's too. He wanted something simpler, and so Patrick fought for his vision. And so he would get these notes and he would change this part to appease Harvey or whatever. But then he'd get another note and then he'd change this part to appease Harvey. And he'd get another note and change this part until by the end of it, he realized, well, this is exactly what Harvey wanted. It was like death by 1,000 cuts, but it was just like piece by piece, he manipulated Patrick into giving him what he really wanted, which I thought was so like diabolical, but he got what he wanted, Yeah.
Well, we certainly went through that on our version of Hellraiser, which the first time they came to us, they had seen, and I think I've probably told this story to you before, but they had seen the who's the guy who played Vision in the Marvel movies?
Paul Bettany?
Yeah, he was in The Priest. Is that right?
Priest, yeah, he was. Yeah.
Okay, so the Priest had come. Right. Yeah, so the Priest had come out and they had a big vampire thingy, and they loved it, and that's what they wanted Hellraiser to be. They wanted it to be this big, expensive, huge thing. And then so we wrote because the whole debacle with Halloween had gone down, we had front loaded our deal, so they had to pay us for the outline. And so we wrote this tremendous outline for it, and by tremendous I mean both lovely and huge. And so it was an enormous outline, and by the time they got it and read it, they had seen another movie and it was different, and they wanted it to be more like this. And so we went back to the drawing board, recreated a whole other outline, and by the time we got that to them, they again had seen another movie and they wanted it to be completely different. And so
you can't just make a Hellraiser movie that's like a Hellraiser movie. You've got to make a Hellraiser movie that's like Priest, but then 2 weeks later it's got to be
like something else. And we did that.
That's just sounds so frustrating. Like, no wonder you don't have any hair. You had to pull it out during that whole process.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But I've got to say, I make this look good.
You make it look damn good. So would you consider that? Would you consider you and Patrick's Hellraiser to be like the one that got away, the one that you put your heart and soul into and it just didn't happen? Or do you have?
I have so many of those. Halloween 3D is certainly that. I would have loved to make our Halloween 3D. Our first version of Hellraiser with Bill Fichtner as a pinhead. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen that. And even the other versions that we gave them were decent versions. They were fun, but that first version was certainly one that got away. But I've had so many of those. I mean, Fright Night. I mean, we had our Fright Night existed in a world with Tom Atkins and Jamie Lee Curtis remaking Roddy McDowall's movies, and they were the one. I mean, it was a remake, but it was a remake of. Anyway, that would have been tremendous fun, and I like Marty's movie. I thought it was fun. So it's just sometimes you go different directions. But I've had so many that got away.
Well, I didn't even know about the Friday night one. Wow.
I didn't.
Wow. Okay. Tell us another one. Tell us another one that got away, Pete.
Well, let me pull up my arsenal of. Let's talk about The Fly. Holy cow! The Fly? The Fly was so much fun that inside the room, and you'll have to help me with names because I drank too much alcohol in my youth. Who's the guy who did Yeah, it could be anyway. Certainly, I remember Christopher Nolan's name coming up. But we're in the room pitching Fox executives who want their big franchise. You know, how can we make, you know? So they've got The Fly, so we pitched The Fly, and so after we had pitched them, they're talking about, well, you know, how do we get, you know, Chris Nolan to come in on this thing, or how? And they start talking about bringing other people in to do the movie that we just pitched them, or to pitch them while we're sitting there. And I was like, okay, so I guess you didn't like our pitch, or it's inspired you to go get somebody better to do it. So it's just, they all got away.
Damn.
Right.
Jeffrey, do you have, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it never gets fun.
Jeffrey, do you have the one that got away?
I have a couple that got away. I mean, I think the biggest one that got away, because it's happened twice now, is Pumpkinhead. Like my first paying job before Final Destination, I was hired to write a sequel to Pumpkinhead, the original Pumpkinhead. This was back when it came out, and very loved the script, was very happy with it, and then MPCA decided to go a different direction, which you all have seen Pumpkinhead 2. Or Blood Wings that has nothing to do with Pumpkinhead. And so now I just was up with a writer friend of mine to reboot Pumpkinhead. Came up with a great story, got everybody signed off on it, wrote the script, turned the script in, and then all of a sudden it's like, we don't really like, horror's not really our thing now. So we're gonna have we paid somebody to write a comedy version of it. Wow. And we're taking that out, and so yeah, the Pumpkinhead is like a fresh one for me, because there's still, once the strike is over, there's still some possibilities there, but I was like, you all fucked me over like my first time, so if I'm going to come back and really put my heart and soul into something, and I did it with Tommy Hudson, who's a really good writer as well, but if I would put my heart and soul into like a franchise that I love the mythology, and I love the creature, and I love the vengeance angle of it, then you got to promise me you're not going to fuck me over this time. We will not fuck you over. And I just learned that
they'll make that promise, Jeff. They'll make that promise anytime you want them to make that promise. They'll make it.
Yeah,
they won't keep it, but they'll make it.
Yeah.
What about you, Peter? What's the one that got away?
Well, the worst example is the one that got away, but then came back mutated, deformed, and debilitated. Like 25 more years ago, Tony Hickox and I wrote. It was. Oh, this is how long ago? Everybody was pitching the Mummy remake, and it was actually there were a pair of producers who, I don't know how the hell we got involved with this, but they wanted to pitch a Mummy remake, but they brought us in to prepare a take on it that they could then. I don't know what happened, but clearly we didn't get the job. But the what would you call it? The leave behind? I wouldn't even really call it a treatment. The 1.5 pieces of paper. We then said to the producers, well, we want this back, because you didn't pay us. You were just giving us this empty promise that Jim Jacks loved you and all, the score. So we got that back. And then weirdly, just around that time, Hammer were trying to revive one of the periodic attempts at reviving Hammer. And they were set up at Warner's. There was a Brit executive they brought over called Rochelle Wilder. And she was working with Richard Donner and Lawrence Schuler Donner. So Tony and I thought, well, it was going to be a version of the Universal Mummy. Why don't we call the revived Hammer and say, are you going to remake your Mummy? So, and then we had this dream gig for a while. We wrote a couple of drafts for Lawrence Schuler Donner. We got to meet Richard. He came in the room 2 or 3 times. And every time we walked in, he'd say, don't stand up. we weren't actually going to stand up. I mean, we were thrilled to meet him, but it was like it had obviously become Richard Donner's default greeting: "Don't stand up. I know I'm important, but don't stand up." So we were really excited because Hammer was saying they had their hands deep in Warner's pockets. Lawrence Schuler Donner was great to work with, and this was going to be. And let me tell you guys, this is back when $80 million was a lot of money. This was going to be an $80 million movie, and we were very excited. And then it died. But that script then had. I bet you guys have had the same experience. It was interesting enough to people that it kept getting re-optioned by people. So for like 15 years, we'd get a little bit of money every year. And then the worst thing that could possibly happen happened. They made it, but it wasn't Warner's, and it wasn't Hammer, and it wasn't Lawrence Schuler Donner, and it certainly wasn't Richard Donner. And it wasn't $80 million. They made it for what they claimed was $6 million. I suspect it was 1.2. And it is, in fact, my as of now, my last produced credit. The movie was made in 2013, but I still think of it as the one that got away because the movie that was made is just fucking awful. So I would rather it had got away for good. I'd rather look back and think, man, we nearly made a movie with Richard Donner for $80 million, as opposed to, oh yeah, that one, the one that would have been the Richard Donner movie. So. What a downer. I'm sorry. These are
man, to go from
we laugh about it. This is
yeah, wow. I do want to mention that if anybody wants to jump on and ask the panel a question, I've made that link available to my channel members and to my patrons. So if you want to jump on and ask one of these three gentlemen a question, that link is now available. We talked about the WGA strike a little earlier, but just for those of us who may not be in the know, is the sticking point here higher wages, or does it have to do with the how residuals are calculated from digital platforms or streaming services? Is it all just what's the sticking point? What's caused the strike? What's the Writers Guild asking for? I guess that's a better.
Who wants this one?
Well, you've got the WGA shirt on, brother.
I do. But that's just because somebody handed it to me, and I said, "Yeah, I like free stuff."
Thank you for shaming us, Todd. Thank you for making me and Jeff look like scabs.
Fuck! I should run and get mine, but I didn't know when this camera was going to come back on.
Look, I was on the fence because I've got several now, but I also have the old. Steve Niles gave me the old horror writers on strike. The Frankenstein Fist. So I have that from ages ago, from 2008. I think this time there are several issues. Certainly physical are a big issue, and there's a whole concept and residuals being specifically with streaming. There are basically no residuals, and right now there are so many streaming platforms that can't even sustain themselves, let alone paying us. So that's a nightmare all on its own. That it's sort of studios and, be it Disney Plus streaming or, Paramount streaming, Netflix streaming, they're all in a situation where they've opened Pandora's box and now they got to figure out how to get out of it. Yeah. But streaming is an issue. There's also the concept of AI in that studios like the idea that one day there will be computers that can take all of Stephen King's works and create a Stephen King screenplay, using all of that and thinking for itself and putting it all together. And is that possible? I mean, look, probably, because, we've all written sci-fi to some degree. And so, certainly, in the future, there will be things that are possible that aren't possible now. And so the studios would like to have that option. But in the shorter period, what's going to end up happening is they'll have crap that these programs will create, and then they'll come to us for pennies on the dollar, because we
Right.
didn't create
Because
the
it's a
original concept.
polish, not a, yeah.
And
right,
now we
right.
got to come in and fix and take the same amount of time that it would take to create it from scratch and create something I think that would be better. But that's an issue. And then there's the whole concept of TV and features. I used to think that features had it worse than TV, because I saw my TV writer friends and they were constantly working all the time.
Yeah, right.
And that's not really the case anymore with these mini rooms and things that the TV writers are having to deal with. That TV writers, there used to be a system that you could climb up and one day become a showrunner and a creator of your own show. That's stopped now. You are in a room when you're just getting started. Sometimes they don't even let the new people in the room. So it's TV has its own stuff that they have to figure out. But there are so many issues this time. I think what we have going for us is that certainly the AI and the residuals are a big issue for actors.
Mhm.
And I think that the actors are very much in solidarity with us. And I don't know where directors are going to fall, but I think if the three of us all together want something better to happen, I think it will. And certainly we have IATSE on our side and we have the Teamsters on our side.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like we're asking for outrageous anything. We're just asking for enough money that we can make a living for ourselves and our families while we are
Right.
writing this script and this script and this
Yeah.
script for you guys to
Like we
decide what it
used
is you
to.
want to make.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So is the issue that the studios don't have the money, or that they just don't want to?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
maybe not.
yeah.
Maybe not the studios. I'm sorry, of course. But what the streaming platforms, like you said, Todd. There's so many streaming platforms. And how do you even keep track of? You mentioned it earlier. One view. Well, how do you keep track of watch time, and how does that get put into it?
That's one of the things that we're asking for. We're asking to know,
right,
for that information to be shared, because I know someone who was in a meeting with several studios, and I have to say this in a way that it can't be, but several studios, and Netflix was there, and the studios don't even like Netflix, because Netflix can find out, not just, if a show runs on Netflix, they can push a button and find out who's watching it. They can find out the algorithm of what age you are, how long you watched it. They have all of that information, and information is power. And so they know how many people are watching. And so as a result, they can take that information and say, well, this many people watched Final Destination and this many people watched Hellraiser. So we know that we don't want another whichever one of you didn't do better, that
Right.
sort of thing. So they can make a decision based on their algorithm, and we don't have any access to that. So we don't know what's real, what isn't real. And it also goes with the numbers as well, because we don't know how many people are watching anything. So it's kind of like, is your apartment worth, $100 million when you're trying to lure investors, or is it worth $2 million when you're talking to the IRS? So it's like you never know who's playing and who's being honest, and so that part can be tricky.
Yeah.
Well, when I looked it up, I read an article saying that there's more opportunities now for writers than ever before because of the proliferation of all these streaming platforms and yada yada yada. But at the same time, there's just not. There's more jobs, but less wage.
I think
yeah.
I would. I mean, there's more opportunities to get your stuff out there, but they're paying less. And
right.
the problem is you have a lot of the big streamers, like the HBOs and the Paramounts and stuff, where they show movies a lot and they pay their, they're about, again, as is any business, they're about paying their stockholders and keeping their stocks up, which is fine. But again, you can't do that by fucking over the people that are creating the things that allow you. It's like fucking over auto workers who assemble the cars, and then being a car, ownership is like, well, we have to make sure our GM stock stays high. So screw those factory workers.
Right.
We're actually putting everything together.
Yeah.
And there's
it's not. Say that again. I
Oh,
interrupted you.
Not a lot of transparency too
No,
about
there isn't.
Right. Right.
No, there isn't. There's no transparency, and I don't know that we'll win that one. I don't know that they would ever. It's just like what you were talking about, the net profits. There's no advantage to them telling us how that system works and how we can win that system. So I don't know how. I don't know what the future holds. But then again, I think if all of the guilds can come together, then this thing will be over in no time.
Oh yeah.
Sure. And just to sound a slight note of optimism, we've never lost. The past strikes. I mean, obviously, we might have compromised from the total package position we went in with, but none of the instances where the Writers Guild has actually struck has resulted in and then we caved and the studios got exactly what they wanted. That's never happened. So I assume we will get what I hope is a reasonable percentage of what we're asking. And I think, and obviously, like all of us, I have faith in our negotiating committee. I have faith in our strike captains, and I'm certainly not going to try and, from my position as an emeritus member guy in the bleachers, I don't want to say they should be doing this, but I feel generally we should concentrate on the things that we can get and maintain and hold. Because, I mean, you guys are right. It's like more opportunities, less money. But it's not like the numbers for scale or scale plus 10 or whatever we can negotiate above it. Even the studios are not trying to knock those down, but they're doing all kinds of penny ante, death of a thousand cuts shit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's 10 years we've been bitching about the single draft contract, the two-step contract. When, as we all know, what they actually get is a 7-step deal out of it. But they always got 7 drafts, but they used to pay us for 3 at least. And now they want to negotiate one where they're going to pay us for 2. Again, I'm leaving it to the people who are on the forefront of the negotiation to say this is what's important and this is what's important. But, I worry about what AI might do in the future as well. But I don't worry about it as much as saying, give people good contracts, pay at least all that stuff. I
agree.
I think we'll get it. I think, because what the hell are they going to do?
Yeah, I agree with you. My only concern with AI.
They got him. The studios took him out.
Oh,
AI throws you, Todd.
Sniped.
The studios.
Okay, guys.
Let's hope.
Well, obviously, he needs rewriting. He was going to say something. Jeff and I should now polish it.
Let's send him some notes here. Okay, he's back. He's back.
The problem with AI is where we lost you.
Yeah, they're listening. Oh, you did lose me.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did.
Because I said some brilliant stuff.
Of course.
The issue with AI is that we don't want to make the same mistake that we made with DVDs, which is we sort of push it aside and we're like, it's not going to be a problem. And the next thing we know, we should have fought for this when it was in its early stages. And so I agree. It's not my most important issue. My most important issue is residuals. And I do agree, even though I'm not in the TV world as much, I do agree that the mini rooms are detrimental and that we should be bringing in brand new writers and teaching them how the TV situation works and how the TV rooms work and all that, where a lot of that gets pushed aside now. So I want there to be a future in TV, and I don't want it to be a computer. I want it to be people physically sitting there writing. And, one thing I did notice the difference between, and we haven't talked about that, the difference between 2008, the strike, and now, just being on the picket line, there's half women, half men. That did not used to be the case. And so the world is improving. So there are
lines,
voices.
It's not just women and men. Those are very diverse lines we got out there this time. It's
Yeah,
great.
I mean,
Great.
the world is improving in that factor. We are getting stories from different people, from different
Sure.
cultures. When, certainly in 2008, it wasn't as colorful, it wasn't as feminine as it is now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And I think another great thing that's helping with the strike is, again, the solidarity between other unions, because of Twitter now, like, the studios used to be able to control the message that writers are just being greedy. But now, we're seeing, showrunners, the Duffer Brothers said they're going to stop production on Stranger Things until this is resolved.
Right.
You say A-list actors and actresses out there on the picket lines saying the studios aren't being fair, and directors saying that. So
right.
now
Yeah.
there's this instant awareness where the studios can't just write us off as being greedy, and we're absolutely not. We're seriously not being greedy. It's just, as people have said, like, we want, as any career, there should be an opportunity to have longevity if you decide to stay in that.
Yeah. Right.
And we've found that option to be dwindling over the years, as far as pay, as far as residual.
Well, have you guys, in terms of our PR, just because I'm always very cautious about sounding like people with first world problems, and we need to not make our PR side finding, no, I don't have 2 cars anymore. It's like, we want to be able to say, we're greedy. Have you seen Zaslav's salary? It's like because we have this information now that the gap between what the owners and stockholders and shareholders are making by the minute and what they're willing to give to us, that's what we need to be driving home. And you're absolutely right, Jeff, that the usefulness now compared to 2008 of that immediate hit on social media. Everybody, we get the funniest comments and slogans on the banners, and people are there. My friend J. W. Hendricks is out there photographing them every day, putting up big folios of photos. And that's the smart thing to do. To say to I almost said ordinary people, and how fucking condescending would that have been? To less special people than ourselves.
All you normals out there.
To civilians. Let's just say civilians. Because you don't want civilians thinking it's a bunch of spoiled showbiz types. Yeah. You want to talk about spoiled, look at this shit. And so it's great. The Twitter hits every day, and Facebook and Instagram too. But Twitter seems to be very alive to it. Yeah. Or maybe it's just what Elon is feeding me. I don't know. But
I think the studios, that's where, like, reporters, politicians, and entertainment people, like, that's where their focus is on Twitter. So I think that this pushback is gonna be embarrassing to them for a while.
I think so. Hope so. Yeah.
I want to say there's a lot of solidarity in the chats with the Writers Guild. There's also a lot of solidarity in the chat with people saying how much they love Jason X. So,
all right,
we got Jason X rules. We've got Nico's going to watch Jason X later tonight. We've got a lot of love for Jason X in the chat.
Is the chat high?
Maybe I don't know.
Is it ever not?
I mean,
come on, man.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
I'm not high now, but I do got some edibles in there.
Just that
I'm in California. I can.
A lot of love in the chat for Jason X. So I mean, that's
thank you guys very much. I'm glad it took us a long time to get here.
Nico does bring up a good point here. He says one issue nobody talks about is how the studios boost their stocks by firing people and crying poverty at the same time. Okay, I'll shut up.
No, you are absolutely right.
Yeah. Yes. Well said. Yeah.
Yeah.
They merge, companies merge.
You can shut up because you got it right.
Yeah.
No need to say more.
Warner Brothers, I know when they merged with New Line, they just fired everybody in New York. So, like, people that had been there for like 30 years, a couple of years away from retiring, like, I think it was like 400 jobs was gutted. And so they're merging, and then again, they're still spending a shit ton of money putting some of these horrible, huge things out that cost like $300 million.
Yeah. Right.
Were you there then?
I had left. I was there for the merger. I had left by the time they fired everybody.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was horrible. I knew everybody in New York, and
yeah, that was a horrible time. And in that time, I got a letter from Warner Brothers saying we did an internal audit and we found that we owe you some residual money. And I flipped it over and looked, and it was a check for $25,000.
Wow.
By the way, that has never happened again.
Well, I want that to happen to me once.
Nor do I expect. Can you believe that? They didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
I'm still shocked. I mean, they don't tell us what the net profits are, but yet somehow Warner Brothers sent me a check for $25,000 for Jason X. What happened there?
Yeah, but it was a residual check, right? Not a point check. So the thing is, they do keep track of that, Todd. As far as I know, like there's like, I don't know what the legal phraseology is. Well, Jeff might know. I haven't worked directly in those things, but
I'm just so used to being screwed.
There are policemen there for when these income streams come in and how they are meant to be divided. So listen, I would like to believe that for once in their miserable lives, they just simply did the right thing. But I suspect it showed up and they were obliged to do it. But, hey, that's great.
You're absolutely right. And for those of you in chat who are asking, I bought a pony with it.
Aww.
His name was Tank.
Excellent.
There you go. So before I turn you guys over to the chat and the questions that we have to those normies out there,
to those beautiful people out there,
what wise words would each of you impart on any aspiring writers out there watching this?
Who's first?
I want to go last on this one. I'm like Old Man River.
Okay.
All right.
I got
good.
This. You guys prepare. I got this.
So you've got to bring it home, Jeff. This is good, Todd. Now we can just say any bullshit we want, and Jeff's got to make it good.
I got the starter. I'll lob it out there. I'll say, make your own movie. Write it.
Right.
You don't have to direct it. Go get a buddy. Let your buddy direct it if you don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable directing. I don't want to do that. But make your own movie. You've got everything you need these days. You can take this little thing. It's fantastic. Go make your own movie. You can light it. You can play around with your lighting. You can do this, get a little darker. You can brighten it. You can do whatever you want.
It's like magic.
I know it is. It's nuts. You have the technology. You have editing software that you can get. Everything that you need is there to do. Don't do what I did and wait for somebody else to come along and give you the opportunity. Because after my first movie, I was like, oh, well, I guess they're all going to come and talk to me about, because I have a severed head, and nobody came. So go out there and make your own movie. That's what I would say. Even though you're just a writer and you feel like you're just a writer, go do it all. Go produce it, make the whole movie. And I look forward to seeing it.
But yeah, okay. I think that's a great position, a great attitude. And I mean, all I would do is widen that out to say, whatever field you're in, I mean, this is just the standard rah-rah speech I give to any kids that want to. It's like, don't be dissuaded from running away with the circus. Fucking run away with the circus, because you won't be happy if you don't. You might get your heart broken if you do. But you got to take a shot. And yeah, Todd's absolutely right. That was literally not true. Many of us had 16mm silent Bolexes, but but now you can make a movie that kind of looks like a movie. So you could do that. And the only other thing I would say specifically for screenwriting is, you've heard some of the horror stories we've told. You've heard other horror stories in the past. But there's definitely a balance. The pleasure of working occasionally, if you're lucky, with like-minded weirdos to to get shit done, and to end up contributing to the field which gave you so much pleasure as a kid and as a teenager. So don't be dissuaded. Do it. And now Jeffrey's going to take it home.
Oh no! Part of it is I just want to start by stealing a little bit of what Todd said, because that's usually what I tell people. Because it's not about you. You can direct or produce, but a lot of times writers just hang around writers and directors just hang around directors. And I think it's cool to like broaden your creative base. So you have your writer friends, but you have some director friends, and you guys can complement each other and start creating work, because Hollywood is lazy. They want you to now show them everything, and you can do something that takes off virally or gets into film festivals. But as a writer, I think one of the pieces of advice is just, if you think about if you can only write one genre for 10 years, like I would say perfect your work in that genre, because I know creatively we want to show that we can write anything and everything, but we forget that there's a business side to this. And if your first script is a horror script, then they're going to want to see your next horror script. And if you're like, I have a great comedy, they're going to be like, send us your next horror script. So I think really reading scripts will teach you so much more, and watching movies and spending a ton of money going to film schools. And so I think just in trying to set up a schedule of writing, like I don't think you have to like say I'm going to write 20 pages a week, but even if you just set up like a half an hour a day, like I realized once I started getting a schedule in my head, like I just trained my brain to start working before I sat down, and I could crank out so much more in an hour than I'm like, I'm going to write this weekend, and then I sit at home struggling. So I think kind of being scheduled and regimented and focusing on a genre, and then stealing some of what Todd said and all of what Pete said. That's yes. And
okay. But when are we going to see the first movie that's written, produced, and directed by Todd Farmer?
Oh, it's going to be a long time.
Okay, all right, but it's in the works. It's just a very slow development.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's right up here.
Mm-hmm.
Can I throw one more note in? Only because we put the WGA strike in the promo for the show. Absolutely, make your own movie first. As soon as you can, join whether it's the DGA, the WGA, or SAG. As soon as you can, legitimately join the guild, one of the guilds. Join, because the fight the WGA is doing right now is going to make the people out there. It's going to make your life better in the future, because you will be coming into a situation in which the guild has managed to maintain, we hope, living standards for you. So as soon as you can, if only out of self-interest, your rates will go up. You'll have health coverage. You'll start working towards a pension that you might get vested in. But as soon as you can, join the guild.
Wise words. Very wise words.
Very good.
We have a question here from Reggie19. He wants to know, does it bother you when an actor improvises lines deviating from your written words?
What?
Are you okay with improvisation?
Are they good at it?
When I was on the set of Drive Angry, I think it was one of the PAs came over and said, Jimmy wanted you to know that Cronenberg is writing his own lines. Cool.
Okay. Right.
Really? That's awesome. That whole line, I don't want him frozen. I want him soft. I didn't come up with that. Right. Cronenberg came up with that, but I get credit for it.
Yeah, hey, damn right. Get it on a t-shirt, man.
He made you look good,
I have never had a problem with an actor writing their. Look, I've been in several of my own movies, and when I get to the point where I'm supposed to perform what I wrote, I change it, because I'm like, oh, that doesn't work.
Oh, that's terrible.
So, except for the part what's
Todd,
that?
Except for the part where Todd shows his butt.
No, then that part I'm really good at.
Always leaves those.
Contractually obligated in every movie, right?
From now on, yeah. And I'm But no, I've never had a problem with actors doing that. You have to make it your own. And as an actor, you have to be able to sell it. And if my words aren't coming out of your mouth in a way that you can sell it, then make it your own. At least that's my opinion. I think you'd have to talk to the actor on your set, or talk to the writer on your set, and make sure everybody's in agreement. But that's my take on it.
I agree. I mean, I think it depends a bit. I mean, Cronenberg, sure. And I had the enormous pleasure of the legendary George Buck Flowers improv all the good lines in his little scene in Wishmaster. But also, Buck was great. He walked in ahead of it and said, "Love the insults you've written. Written a few myself. Can I throw some of them in?"
Mm-hmm.
And, what response can you have to that other than, "You're Buck Flowers, do what the fuck you want."
Yeah.
And, so
every
yeah.
No, you go. It's your turn.
I don't have any problem as long as it's better.
As long as it's
exactly.
better.
Yeah.
I've had some people like ad-lib some stuff and the producers like wanted to keep it in because it was like a name that did it. And it's just like a horrible line. And then that line gets picked out in review. It's like this stupid was, and I'm like, I didn't do that.
Yeah, right.
We Nick Cage would come on set and he would give you what you wrote, and then the second take would be Nick Cage, which is great because you got what was written, and he nailed it. He's ready to go home at that point, and then you get some Nick Cageisms, and sometimes those are great, and sometimes those are crazy. But that's great because you have the option when you get in editing later. So
yeah.
Horror
good
Orman.
question though.
Yeah, very good question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Horror Orman wants to know, screenwriters, would you rather write short stories or novels? And Peter has done both. So
yep. I don't have snobbery in either direction. I don't know. I never didn't do both, so it's not like as a screenwriter I had aspirations to do prose fiction, and it's not like as a prose fiction writer I had aspirations to screenwrite. I was a greedy little fucker who wanted to. I was in bands as well. I wanted to do it all, it's but I will say there are some, this won't be news to any of us and hopefully not to the listeners either. There are some fantastic novelists who are the worst fucking screenwriters in the world, and there are some fantastic screenwriters who try a novel, it's perhaps not for them, but I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I also, I have not had covered work as a screenwriter for like 11 years now, so I'm now a novelist and short story writer who used to be a screenwriter, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not, but I don't know. I don't know. What do you guys think? All the novelists I know love movies, and all the screenwriters I know love books. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's hard. Like, it's hard for me to like. I've written short stories. I collaborated with a writer friend to do a novelization, but
right, Jeff. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I just realized we are pub bros, right? Haven't you just done one for Encyclopocalypse?
Oh, they're redo. They're really.
Oh, you'd already they reprint. Oh, okay. I didn't know if we knew or not. But
yeah, no, it looks through camera.
Well, yeah, we got a publisher in common. That's great.
Yeah, but that's the only book that I've ever written, and for me, because I actually wanted to study theater, so English was like my backup, as my favorite subject. So I spent so much of my time writing screenplays where everything is external and visual. Like writing a novel for me, I maybe someday, but it just feels especially on my own, feels way too daunting. Because of the way I've just wired my brain to write screenplays.
Sure.
It's certainly tough. I started two, didn't finish either one. For me, we write screenplays in the now. So it's like everything is happening now. It's very active. It's very so, and a lot of times novels are in the past tense, and so to switch your brain from writing you know, into past tense is sometimes tough for me. So that, like, I'll read something that I've written and go back and I've slipped into past tense. And so I never thought that would be an issue. So, but it is. So it's not second nature for me.
You two guys have higher standards than me. I just jump in and do it anyway.
And just go.
Yeah.
Well, actually, here's a question for you, Peter, from Nico. He says, did you need to purchase the rights to Bloodline so you could have it published as a book?
To purchase the rights? No. One of the, again, a right that our union has won for us. Any guild sanctioned or guild covered screenplay, one of the rights we have, not novelization rights, by the way, that's usually a contractual and separate thing, but all guild covered screenwriters have publication rights to their screenplay. Now, the truth is, most screenplay, it's not really a viable publishing form. So most screenplays and screenwriters don't act on that right, because for the most part, publishers figure there isn't a huge market for screenplays. Luckily for me with Bloodline, because Hellraiser has an existing interest, that could happen. But no, I didn't have to. I mean, they didn't pay me either, but I got royalties from Encyclopocalypse. They're a great company. But no, yeah, I again, seriously, because of the guild, I had the right to publish that screenplay. I also published the Wishmaster screenplay several years back. There's since been a novelization as well, but yeah, you can publish your screenplay.
I just put my shit online. I didn't even think about publishing it. Just giving it away.
Come on, Jeff, milk it, baby.
Distorted Visions has a two-part question. Who are some of your favorite screenwriters, and was there any particular screenwriters that really inspired you into writing your very first scripts?
Nobody knows screenwriters' names, Justin. We don't know who wrote those movies.
I was in Dallas, Texas, and I bought a book that had True Romance and Reservoir Dogs in it. I think it was just those two. And I read Reservoir Dogs first. And I was like, and I thought I wanted to be a novelist. So this is a long ass time ago. I went to school and I wanted to be a novelist. I was a double major in English and marketing because I wanted to be a novelist. And if I sucked at it, I could go into advertising. And I read this screenplay. And I'd started writing novels, and I found that once I figured out the plot, I no longer had the maturity to finish writing it. And so when I saw this 120-page screenplay, I was like, I could do that. And so, yeah, it was certainly Quentin Tarantino that got me started.
Yeah, good.
Wes Craven, Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite movie ever. And so I saw the movie, and then I got a hold of Bob Shays and his assistant at New Line, and they sent me the screenplay, and I was like, this is friggin' amazing. So that was Wes Craven's definitely been the biggest influence on me, because it hit me, when I was like 14, and started screenplays. I remember a script though, a script that I got at New Line for Pump Up the Jam, the Christian Slater movie.
Yeah.
Pump Up the Volume?
Pump Up the Volume.
Pump Up the Volume,
not Pump Up the Jam. I just love that song. Pump Up the Volume. God, I know the screenwriter's name. It was such a brilliant script outside of the genre that was the first script that I read that wasn't a genre script, that I was like, I could see the whole movie in my head. I'm like, this is a brilliant script. This was years later, Wes Craven. But I just wanted to give it Pump Up the Volume a shout out, and I'm hoping Googling the writer's name because I can't Google with the Zoom open.
Alan Moyle.
Alan, yes.
Moyle. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, right.
He also directed it.
Yes.
Who are some who would be I don't know, like your top 3 best screenwriters working today, excluding yourself?
Oh, I'm not answering that one.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
No, let's talk about we'll talk about the dead people. Just
Okay. we don't. Okay, let's not go there.
Can I throw in?
I mean, Jeffrey Reddick and Peter Atkins are certainly.
Yeah,
yeah,
Jeff, absolutely. You got him right here, Justin. You got the best 3. Can I throw in a favorite screenwriter?
Absolutely.
Who, by the way, does not have a credit on the movie. Again, I keep trying to twist this round to guild propaganda, but I'm unembarrassed and unashamed because this is also true. It's one of my favorite scripts and a lot of people's favorite scripts, and that's the noir movie Out of the Past, which is based on a Jeffrey Mannering novel called Bill Margallo's High. And I believe Jeffrey Mannering is the only credited screenwriter on the movie. But about 20 years ago, somebody at the magazine Film Comment did a deep dive research, and there were 3 people who did drafts for the movie. Second one of whom was the great noir novelist James M. Cain, which, so, your antenna goes up, but that's not the good one. Not a single word of Cain's screenplay made it into the movie. It's Mannering's structure, but Out of the Past, for those people listening who are maybe hardcore horror guys and don't look outside the genre, it's a great noir movie, great femme fatale, great, not detective, but protagonist in Robert Mitchum, who looks fabulous, as does Jane Greer, Kirk Douglas as a villain. So many good lines, like every fucking line is quotable in that movie. And they were all written by a guy called Frank Fenton, who was, I'm going to use the phrase simply as a descriptive rather than a pejorative. He was a studio hack. He did a lot of programming work, call it like on-set polish. He was like a guy for hire, comes in, fixes things, fucks off, works on this thing for a week, works on that thing for a week. So he didn't get credit. But all the memorable lines from that movie, and there are many, were thanks to Frank Fenton. So I would like to throw his name out there. He was also a guy from Liverpool who moved to Hollywood to write movies, so I'm a little prejudiced.
Let's see here. This is a good question from Richard Stange. Do you get anything if you have a movie that gets released in a box set, such as Jason X in the Shout Factory box?
Residuals go up, but you don't get anything else.
Okay.
Residuals might go up, but you don't get anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. We also have a question from Lost Tune about novelizations. He says, when it comes to novelizations, do you receive any type of monetary gain from those books being based off of your original material?
I never did. There's been books on Jason X. I never got any. Did you guys?
Yeah.
There were a couple, there were some fun. I didn't realize it, but there were some Final Destination books that I didn't find out about until like 4 books in. I guess they had to pay me like $5,000 a book or something like that, just as a passive payment.
Yeah, right.
Then they were like, "Well, you need to waive these rights, or we can't publish any more of them because we can't afford it." So I know everybody. I was, I'm a trusting country boy at heart, and
so am I.
So yeah.
But also, you want to see the books. I mean, that's why they get us over a barrel, right? Because it's like, yeah, well, I'd rather the books were there than they
make money.
Yeah.
Apparently, I could have done something like that because Jason X kind of went outside the box, and because those were new characters and so forth. And I remember getting sent a letter from the guild saying, you know, do you want to claim these? And I was like, nah, I'm fine. And I didn't. Oops.
This was shortly after receiving your surprise 25 grand residual.
No. This was long before that. So I was far dumber back then. And I said no. This was right after, I think, right after Jason X had been out maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
Right. Wyatt Terrell asks, Todd, are you ever nervous when performing in your own? I think he means movies that you've written.
Let me get these off now and tell you. It's a little chilly out here. No, I don't have a problem at all. No, it's not as fun as you might think, because you know you've got, as you're simulating sex, you have a Teamster's boot about 3 inches from your face on the bed, but shaking the bed to make you move faster. But other than that, no, I don't have a problem with it.
That's crossing the line, man. That's the director's job. That Teamster's in trouble.
Oh, he helped out a lot. He kept me going. Look, we as horror writers have been asking women to take their clothes off for freaking ages. It's about time we get some dick on the line as well. So,
and you're leading that
opinion.
struggle, Todd, and we appreciate it.
I have no problem with that.
So we have a question here from Joe Reese, and he says, I have Final Draft 9. If I wrote something, how do I get the screenplay to a producer or studio living in the middle of the country? So let's take out the equation of like he's going to make it himself and he wants to do the old school route.
Right.
How can somebody living in middle America get a screenplay into the hands of, into the hands of somebody who could buy it, who could make it? How does that happen?
Well, can I just check? Can you respond to the question? Because with him or her mentioning the software, I'm not sure if it's like a technical question, like do you submit it in Final Draft 9 or turn it into a PDF, or is it just the more standard question of how the hell do we get it out there?
I think I'm 99.9% sure it's how do I get it out there.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Sure.
Todd, you want to answer?
I mean, if you find out, tell me.
No, I mean, honestly, like that's why I kind of said that is like there's the business has changed so much since even I worked at New Line. Like at least when I worked at New Line, you could send a query letter to somebody to see if they would be open to reading something that didn't come through an agent. That doesn't happen anymore. There are a few places maybe that will smaller production companies. Forget the studios. The studios are all focused on remakes, stuff like that. Producers that have deals at studios aren't really looking at stuff. They're getting stuff submitted by agents. That's why I really do think it's important, like what Todd said, is to kind of try to create your own content because you need to get something to get somebody's eyes on you. If you start working at a production company, if you can kind of figure out a way to get into the business, like even if it's PAing on set, that can help you. There aren't any easy shortcuts or even hard shortcuts now because like after I sold Final Destination, I couldn't get an agent. Like I had a friend at CAA hip pocketing me, which meant I wasn't a client. She was just doing it because she had worked with me at New Line. And this is like a huge franchise that came out and I still couldn't get an agent because I didn't have enough credits, just one big credit. So it's really hard. And I don't want to go off on a rant here. It's just, we've all probably heard this question a lot, but if somebody offers to represent you for pay, don't believe them. There are a few really, genuine like screenplay competitions that if you get in like Blacklist or Nichols, there are some of those that if you win those, people respect them enough that they will look at like winning scripts. But there are so many bullshit competitions out there where they just want money. There's a lot of pitch fests out there. You shouldn't be spending a ton of your money trying to get people to read your stuff. People that will take your money to do it are usually liars or just take advantage.
Right.
You know, just you know, once a strike is over, again, like look for local production companies. Even like don't reach out to LA and New York right now. Like they're swamped. And you know, but see if there's local production companies that you can maybe even start writing commercials for or something or things like that. I'm not saying give up on the script stuff. It's just so much of my career and every one of my friends' careers, and I think even the guys on this call, like it was a matter of persistence and so much luck.
Yeah,
like, so much luck.
Tons of luck.
I mean, I worked at New Line. They passed on like 4 or 5 of my scripts before with Final Destination. And with Final Destination, I had to take my story outside of New Line to some producers who used to work with me at New Line and had a deal at New Line, because I'm like, well, I don't think they'll take me as seriously if I just give this to them now. So let me have these producers bring it in. And then we still had a hard time, you know?
Right.
So that's the thing is like, you all have so much more access to, like Todd said, equipment and things to make films and make shorts and make content that you can get out there and get people excited about where they want to see more of your stuff. But there isn't a easy answer to like, how can I get my script read or how can I get an agent? Like those are like,
right. Yeah,
I didn't mean to like
no, that was
it's important to say that.
Was great. That was
I agree.
great.
I mean, the situation has changed. It was difficult 30 years ago, and sadly, it's more difficult now. Again, you know, we've all talked about how lucky we all were. One of the ways I was lucky was, well, you know, I mean, not only had I worked in theater with my friend Clive, who then recommended me as a writer, but beyond Clive, when the Hellraiser franchise started, way before they brought me in for number 2, the worst still thing, we had a guy called Chris Fegg, who was he was a genuine indie producer. He was just a guy that wanted to produce movies and had the same fire to want to produce movies as we did to make them. And I don't know. I mean, I would like to think there were still Chris Figgs out there, and that the person who sent in the question could somehow find a Chris Figg, because he's the guy who got that franchise started. He's the guy who wouldn't take no for an answer from New World, which is where the first 2 movies were done. And yeah, I really don't want to be negative to anybody out there, but I do have to agree with what Todd and Jeff say. That's like it's just fucking tough, and you certainly need talent, but you need a break as well. And I wish there was still a world full of Chris Figgs, or you know, whoever the guys were that helped the other guys here. But I don't know if the Chris Figg model is really still out there. And I don't know, but don't give up.
Don't give up. And there's also like you'll notice that they're building film communities out like in Kentucky, you know.
Yeah, right.
Atlanta, pretty much every state is trying to build up film communities and bring in filmmakers. So, you know, even reaching out to like the film commission in your state to find out who's doing what, you know, like those are practical steps that I think you can take.
Right.
That's a great idea.
You know? It is. Yeah. George Romero started in Pittsburgh, not Hollywood. You know, and he did quite well.
Yes,
he did pretty well.
I still think. I mean, I got in through a friend. I knew a guy who knew. I went to college with a guy who knew a girl who went to school with a guy, and that was Dean Laurie. Right. And I. Because I knew her, he jumped on the phone with me, and then he read 40 pages of a screenplay and threw it away because he realized he said, you know, you have no idea how to structure a screenplay. So I threw it away. But he said, you got some really good ideas. He said, I can teach you structure. He said, I can't teach really good ideas. And so that was the thing for me. When someone sends me a script, and I get sent tons, and I don't normally read them. I read on occasion. I'll read some, and I'll give you 10 pages. And if you can't catch me in 10 pages, you're not going to catch a producer. You're not going to catch a studio exec. You're not catching anybody else. So you've got 10 pages to win me over. There are sometimes somebody will send me 10 pages and they've got the talent. They don't know what the hell they're doing, but they've got the talent. And I once didn't know what the hell I was doing. So in that situation, I can help. So my advice would be get around the people who are doing what you want to do. And that's what I did. So if you're in the middle of the country, of course, that's very difficult. But what you have now that we didn't have is there actually are places that you can go online. There are people that you can talk to online. That didn't exist when I was starting out. So, the world has become a little bit smaller. I still think the easiest way in is the people that you know. And even to do that, that's a big, big favor to ask. Would you read my screenplay? Because I don't read fast. I write pretty fast, but for some stupid ass reason, I don't read fast. It takes me forever. So it's a big ask. And to ask somebody hey, could you read my screenplay and give it to your agent? No, I can't.
Right.
Because I can barely get my agent's time myself.
Right. The second half of that, especially, it's like, whatever use we might be reading it, maybe we can do that. But your agent usually gives you like 2, over the course of 10 years, you can forward 2 scripts to me. But just, I want to echo what Jeffrey said for the listener, that because it's really, there are a lot of fucking sharks and parasites out there now.
There are.
Some of these places are legit. Some of them have genuine connections with the industry. You're still bucking the odds if you get through it. But there are way more lying assholes with some fake logo and diploma on the wall. So please be careful. And do not be throwing money at people who possibly don't know what the hell they're doing. Actually, they do know what they're doing. They're stealing money from people like you. So
I was at Cunningham from probably 96 to maybe 97 to 2000.
Yeah.
97, 99, 97, 2000. And while I was there, this little script came across the desks and we were all reading it, and Sean wanted to pursue it. And he had a bunch of notes. He felt like it was too young. It needed to be adults. And I kept saying, there is nothing wrong with the script. And that was Final Destination.
Oh,
wow.
Well, that's a sweetheart story.
Wow.
You got to know when to end these things.
It's a long ass time ago.
It's all come full circle.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, and to echo what Todd and Jeffrey said about making your own movie, look at the guy who made Smile. That started out as a short, just a short film.
Yeah,
it got enough people interested, and now he made it into a big movie that turned into a huge success, and now he's probably he's got a deal somewhere, making a lot of money. So, but it all started with that short.
Yeah, and also be patient with yourself. Because again, it takes time. Like I read before I started this business that you have to be willing to commit 10 years before you can start making a living at this. Does not mean that that it's going to take you 10 years. But if your heart is not and your soul is not like, this is something that I will pursue for 10 years, maybe it's not the right business for you. It was literally 10 years till I graduated high school that Final Destination came out. Or until I sold it. I'm sorry. I graduated in 87. I sold it in 97. So it was 10 years. And before that, I tried acting. That wasn't working out. I tried this. You just keep going. And there's so many ways to attack the business. So if this is really your passion, don't give up. But study, read scripts, get people around you who learn how to take constructive criticism. Because I do see the one issue I see, and then I'll quit yapping. The one issue I see with a lot of screenwriters today is they'll send you a draft that clearly needs a lot of work and they don't want to hear it. Like they don't want to hear it. And I learned very quickly from working at a studio that the only way that you get better is if you keep working. Because I got coverage from New Line from when I was in Kentucky. I'd send them scripts, and Bob Shea's assistant Joy Mann would call me and say, it got really good coverage, but they think you need to work on this and this and this. When I started working at New Line, I found that coverage, and it was like, this thing was obviously written by a middle schooler. And I was like, I was in high school.
Nice.
But the thing is, she didn't tell me the stuff to crush my dreams, but she told me the stuff to improve upon, because it's a harsh business. And when you start off, you're gonna think you're the cock of the walk and that your first 5 scripts are brilliant. They're not. You know, nobody writes a brilliant first script. You just don't, unless you hone it, and get lots of great notes. So just have the humility to know that you can always grow, and have the patience to surround yourself with the good people, you know. And
absolutely, yeah. I mean, especially if you're not in one of the big centers, find a community. Like, you know, in the same way musicians have to find other musicians to form a band, find actors, find other writers, find directors, because even if they themselves aren't going to end up being people who make your movie, they'll know somebody who'll know. So the wider you can make your community and the Venn diagrams of your various communities. I feel so negative. It's like, you know, I want to encourage everybody.
It's encouraging what you're saying. It's right.
Yeah, but just
you want to be encouraging, but you need to be realistic.
Yeah.
Well, my closest friends, and I have friends who are directors and friends who are producers and so forth. I sleep with a producer, but my most of my close.
Good.
Most of my closest friends are writers and actors who've taken their clothes off, and I think that's important.
Yep.
It's like nobody caught the last part, which
I did.
Did you not see my? You know,
I was trying to figure out a way to.
There are certain things we're not allowed to laugh at anymore.
We can laugh at it, but if anybody tells you to take your clothes off to get a movie made, don't believe them. They won't make it.
Unless it's
that's true.
That's for my actor friends. That's I have to give them.
Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. Let me do some shout outs here and then we'll call it a night, guys. Horror Orban, thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, Todd Farmer rules. Such a nice soul that has chatted with me privately. His positivity is infectious.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nico, for the the additional $10 super chat. He says, thank you all for another great night. I'm taking notes. Very nice. Thank you. And Bronson, thank you for the $1. Appreciate that. All right. So if you guys have any projects in the works that you want to plug or whatever, or let us know where we can find you on social media, go ahead and let us know. What about you, Jeffrey?
Oh, damn it. Why'd you start with me? Yeah. Well, right now I'm just scabbing all over the place, writing so much.
Right. Yeah, let's be careful here. None of us are working.
He's not serious.
I'm not. I'm totally not serious.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm dumb. You guys are on strike. You can't be working. I apologize.
Well, I have I produced a film that's shooting in Kentucky called New Year's Eve that I shot a part in it, and Felissa Rose is in it, and Dave Sheridan. So that was awesome. Another movie called Till Death Do Us Part that's in Cannes right now that I produced.
Right.
And hopefully, if barring the SAG strike, I'll be directing a movie this summer that I wrote and sold years ago, and we got out a turnaround. So,
excellent.
And then trying to bring about world peace.
That's a full-time job on its own.
That's great.
I'm kidding, guys. I don't have that kind of power.
I love war.
Not yet, at least. Not yet. Where can we find you on social media?
At Jeffrey A. Reddick. Yeah. I know I sounded confused.
Just look up.
I just want to make sure that A is in there.
It is.
Okay. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. So at Jeffrey A. Reddick, Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, cool. Todd, where can we find you, and what are you not working on at the moment?
I am not working on finishing my cabinet and sink in the front house, which I'm going to do as soon as we're done with this. I'm probably going to eat something first and then go. The tenants are coming back tomorrow, so I need to maybe have their house kind of cleaned up and ready for them. But I am, you can catch me at Todd_Farmer at Instagram and Twitter. And then you can catch me at Sony probably in the afternoons this coming week. And it's at, I think it's 4080 Overland, or it's 8040 Overland. I forget, but if you Google it.
Your GPS will tell you. And also, I mean, the Guild, not that people weren't welcome in 2008, but very wisely, the Guild is letting any friends, allies, and supporters picket this time around. So if you feel like joining Todd or any of us at any of the picketing sites, come along, carry a placard, give the finger to any asshole who won't honk you.
Last week, any of you that might be Bloody Valentine fans, Eddie Galtegui showed up, and we had a little reunion, and we marched and talked.
Right, you never know who you'll meet. Jay Leno brought donuts. Come on,
he did. he did not bring them to me.
Nor me, bring donuts, actually, but you know.
Somebody,
I haven't tried yet. I don't know if Drew Carey is buying everybody's lunch at Bob's Big Boy this time around.
Yeah, he did it last time too. So if you go to Bob's Big Boy,
he is doing it.
You show your guild card, you get the free meal.
No, it's fantastic. I had no idea. I was actually last time, because last time we all had strike captains who assigned you to specific ones. I was at Prospect, but they transferred me to Warner's one time. And I went over to Bob's, and the waitress quietly said, "Are you with the Guild, sir?" And in case civilians don't know this, Drew Carey bought every Guild member lunch at Bob's Big Boy. And by the way, some of us abused it. Like a bunch of my friends who really weren't picketing every day. I mean, they were there sometimes, but it was like, what? Free lunch? And they went like Monday through fucking Friday. So Drew, on their behalf, I apologize.
That's hilarious. So, Peter, where can we find you on social media? And if you've got anything in the works, let us know.
Sure. I'm on Facebook just as my own name. And I can't remember what the code is at the top, because there are other Peter Atkinses who are also published writers, which is really fucking annoying. So I guess if you search Peter Atkins space horror, right, you find it's easier on Twitter and Instagram. I am limey_bastard55, so you can find me there. And I'm relieved to say that prose fiction is not strike-breaking work. It is not covered work by the Guild. So I have a recent collection that's still available right now on Amazon, folks. And I have a new story coming out in an anthology this October, edited by the great Mark Morris, another horror writer, called Darkness Beckons. And I'm very proud to be in. It's got a great list of contributors. So I'm really lazy. Like, I average a short story every 18 months. So thank you for asking me in one of the years when I actually have something coming out. So
nice.
That was, I forgot I didn't see who said that. But yes, I'm gonna.
Oh, yes. There we go. Yes,
Nicodem. I owe.
No relation. I'm sorry to say.
No.
I'd be proud.
I'm gonna do your DNA, and we're gonna figure out how you two are connected.
Okay. We probably are. Does he have Boston people? Because when my granddad emigrated from Ireland to Liverpool, his brother emigrated from Ireland to Boston. So I would love to find out.
I know Tom is Irish in background, so yeah, you guys have got to be
related.
Yeah, gotta be. This is the best news I've had all day.
Yeah, and probably us too, because my seventh grandmother is Irish. So
aren't we all? Yeah,
you and I are practically cousins.
Yeah, I don't have any Irish in me.
You want some in you?
I was just going to say that's Phil Lynott's joke. You guys are so young. You remember Thin Lizzy, the band Thin Lizzy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was Phil
I
Lynott.
might-
Every time that Irish asshole played New York, he would announce to the crowd, "Any of you girls out there got a bit of Irish in you?" And people would shout no or yes, and Phil would say, "Any of you want a bit more?"
I
You
wrote
can't tell these jokes anymore. Shame on you people.
I wrote the Boys Are Back in Town biopic, and I even talked to Jeffrey a little bit about it.
Wait, seriously, you did?
Yeah, it's right before the pandemic. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh shit,
Wow.
that's great. I had no idea. That's fantastic.
Yeah. He's the original Black Irish.
Yeah, he made that joke many times too.
Many.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, it's a brilliant story, and it's a great band.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
Very much
cool.
Yeah.
And where is it? Can we find it? What's?
No, it's
It's not made yet.
made.
Okay.
Yeah, hasn't been made yet. Now, right before the pandemic, we went and met with his ex-wife and talked about the music and rights and so forth. And so
Cool.
it's not horror.
Damn it.
Not yet. Wait till the rewrites.
Oh, yeah. Wait till you get those notes.
Give me time. I haven't started the rewrite.
Sure.
So it'll be fine.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you all so much for spending these last 2.5 hours with us talking all about the game of screenwriting. And time flies. Yeah, time
It
flies.
does.
But I certainly appreciate it. I know the chat really seemed to have had a great time tonight. You guys are awesome. Todd, thank you again for coming on the channel.
Always my pleasure.
Peter, again, thank you also.
Sure. Thank you. It's great.
And Jeffrey, it was great having you on for the first time.
Thank you for busting my cherry.
It was my pleasure. Trust me. And thank you all out there for watching. And yeah, hopefully you learned something. And that's what this channel is all about: education and entertainment. So
Great.
Yeah.
There
Keep
you go.
writing, everybody. And
Yeah, it's great to talk to you guys.
yeah, absolutely.
Cheers.
take care. Have a great rest of your night.
Gun down, Todd.
Head moving.
Take care, you all.
All right.
Peace.
Cheers.
Peace out.